don't you tell us about Qualcomm? Because I think it's really a behind-the-scenes company, because you don't sell a consumer product, but you're in all of them. Tell us about Qualcomm and exactly what you do there.
Qualcomm has gone through, so we just celebrated our 40th year anniversary, and I've been through 28 of those 40 years. So every few years or so, we have like a DNA mutation, and at this point in time, I think the way to think of Qualcomm is we provide all the solutions that power the devices that you carry around with yourself, going from doorbells to data centers now, as I'm talking of. So the way to capture all of this is intelligent connectivity, and the reason why we actually specifically mentioned that, it might be an often repeated phrase, but our origins were in wireless communication, so we maintain the connectivity, but increasingly we bring in high performance but energy efficient computing into devices that you and I can carry around with us. And that's kind of critical, because what we have seen is that the learnings that we have from devices in energy efficient computing are equally relevant in data centers these days as we start paying attention to the overall, the grid implications and the energy implications of that. So, and maybe just a word or two on the devices by itself. When we talk of energy efficient computing, the computing can be broken down into three categories. There's general purpose compute, that's the CPU that actually runs all the efficient, the processing that we do. But it has some applications to AI, but not necessarily all of it. And then we have the GPU, which is it has a day job of graphics and all the other rendering that we do. But our processor focus when it comes to generative AI is on the NPU. The NPU is designed from ground up specifically for generative AI workloads. And so based upon that, today, if you take a typical premium tier smartphone, you can run a pretty large model on it, like a 10 billion parameter model on it. Just to put this in perspective, November of 2022, just short of 3 years back, is when the ChatGPT moment happened. That's the time that all of us actually started paying attention. At least in the mainstream, more people paid attention to generative AI. But the 10 billion parameter model that you have today easily outperforms those models from back then. Bottom line, we are at a point where we can run pretty compelling generative AI use cases and very large models and devices. Today, whatever could run in the cloud last year, for instance, you are in a position to actually run that in devices now. So smartphones, PCs, glasses, AR glasses, and consumer and industrial IoT. Consumer IoT goes into wearables, and automotive. These are like the broad category of devices that we talk of.
So first things first, today a lot of us carry a phone in our pocket, maybe we have a tablet, maybe we've got a laptop. I'm wearing a smart ring, wearing a smart watch. What is the consumer, not the, early adopter consumer like me, but, the mainstream, 3 years from now, what are you carrying?
Okay, so there's a lot that's going on, but maybe I'll preface it with what is it that we want in the devices around us? We call this as the universe of devices. By the way, as humans, we've kind of made our choices in some of these devices. You correctly pointed out, we wear our glasses, we don't carry them with us. We wear our rings and wearables, which is watches. And then the notion is that, okay, and then we carry our phone with us. We don't wear our phone with us. It's a slightly different perspective. But we are in the business of connectivity and intelligence together in all the devices. Our watches are, by all means, connected directly to the network. You can actually have that. So if I were to actually pick just one concept, that would be glasses that you wear, which are directly connected to the network.
So let's pause for a second. So I have these here. These are the Meta Ray-Ban display glasses. These just launched a few days ago. If you want a pair, good luck finding one. But what's unique about these is they're one of the first mainstream smart glasses with a display. So I have this neural wristband here, and you can do hand movements and what have you to control these things. And they have a screen in it, so you can see who's calling. You can do video conferencing, notifications. And, I look a little odd wearing them. I just actually took a picture of all of you. But they're kind of nifty. So, Durga, what's your role in these?
So it's our chip that actually powers these glasses.
You're inside of these. They only work because of what you guys developed.
That's right. And if you kind of think about it, by the way, I mean, I can go all pretty geeky into the tech over there, but just think about what we are talking of there. You just said you took a picture. there's an actual camera in there, and there's like a, you can make voice calls, you can do lots of things with it, which are kind of, just a few years back, it was not easily to foresee. And these are glasses that you basically walk into a store and buy. These are not pretty goofy glasses or anything of that sort. The form factor is really slick. And now if you think about, once you add even the direct connectivity directly to the network, as we talk through it, and this might be very well the beginnings of the 6G era in some sense. Every G has a way of defining the defining device in that sense. It is possible that this could be one of those devices. At least that's what we are actually focused on. But that actually brings in a completely different perspective, because what you can do now is run some of the AI processing in the glasses, and the rest of it can be run somewhere in the cloud, all the way into the data center, or maybe somewhere at the edge of the network. It's distributed processing that occurs, and that's a very different kind of a world that we're going to live in. Now, given that you actually showed your device, I'm going to show one other one.
Oh.
This is, last week we had our Snapdragon Summit. It's something that we do in terms of, and we talked about a latest generation of PCs.
And it's in Hawaii.
It's in Hawaii. It's a tough life, but someone's got to do it. So it's very well attended, and we actually did it in 2 locations concurrently, both in Hawaii and in China at the same time. But we talked about the latest generation of Snapdragon processors and the platforms for PCs and smartphones. This, by the way, is a full-fledged PC. This is what, if you think of a Dell or a HP or a Lenovo or a Microsoft laptop, this has the complete processing power in that. Now, if Microsoft is a very close partner of ours, just like Meta, and so are Dell, HP, and Lenovo. But as we start interacting with devices like this, one of the things that you might have noticed in the glasses, and I think it's far more stark in that, is every few decades, there's a change in the UI between a human and a processing capable, something that's a processor in front of you. I wasn't there in the 70s when we were talking about this, but the 70s was mainframe, command line interface. That's what it was all about. Sometime in the 80s, that's when my first introduction to all of us, quite a few of us at least, to a mouse, something more graphical. That's a change in the UI. It's very different from just a command line interface. A couple of decades later, we all got used to a device in which touch became a far more interesting interface. And then now, today, we all carry around devices with a clutter of apps in that. But you know what? You don't actually do that with it. You use your voice as the UI a lot more. So in some sense, AI is in fact not only changing the UI, but is the new UI to the devices over here. I would like to talk to my laptop a lot more than actually search for things or do some things with it. And so that's something that, as Qualcomm, we are investing in quite heavily. How do we make it easy for all our partners to build solutions on top of it?
So I think from an investor standpoint, people want to know what's going to happen to the phone. What's the impact going to be on these phone companies like Apple? What do you think?
My personal prediction on that is the phones are here to stay. I think they are here to stay. It's the way that we interact with them that is going to gradually evolve. It's an evolution, because most of the times what happens is that when you have a fairly mature device, unless you have like a full-fledged replication of that, there's not going to be like an abrupt transition. It's going to be a gradual transition. But the real innovation starts coming in from devices that didn't exist before, like the glasses that you just showed. That's where it's like a clean start. You can actually start with whatever and then you bring in something new. So we think of it as an evolution in the smartphone and a far more revolutionary approach when it comes to new kinds of devices like that.
And to your point, the phone, right, didn't kill the laptop. I mean, maybe there's some people who don't have a laptop now because they have a big phone. The tablet, everyone thought the iPad would come in and destroy the laptop, but that didn't happen. Laptops are as ubiquitous as ever, if not more so. What is Qualcomm's role in the laptop today? Because really you were known initially with cellular connectivity, and then you have done phone chips, but more recently you're going big in PCs.
That is correct. So maybe I'll spend a few minutes on what we are doing in PCs. So together with a close partner of ours, Microsoft, and all the other OEMs who are involved in this. Last year, you saw the birth of what was deemed as AI PCs. It's the first time that we started talking of AI integrated into the PCs, into laptops, in a way that you can run pretty large models and use cases, AI use cases directly on the device with or without connectivity. And most of the laptops don't actually have cellular connectivity. So this is even in instances where you're literally in an airplane mode and you're still getting some work done. And the AI PCs, starting from June of last year, it coincided with Microsoft pushing very strongly on the Copilot features. So these days, by the way, there's lots of nice features that are there where, you enter a Teams meeting and then if you join in like a few minutes late, you actually get a summary. You can ask for a summary and get done with that. But there's a lot more. At the end of the day, the laptop is something that it's a bread and butter for, code generation, software, content creation, and things of that sort. And AI is permeating all of those things. Like generation of code these days in enterprises, a good fraction of it is, there is dependence upon AI in one form or the other. At least that's emerging trends. And as Qualcomm, what we did is make sure that these PCs can run very energy efficient, but pretty large models running directly on the platform itself. This is slightly different from what runs on the data center in the sense that when you have large models in the data center, when you talk of a rack in a data center, that's like 150 kilowatts, right? And think of what actually powers your laptop, and you want it to last for 24 hours. So our stringent KPIs were extremely power efficient but high performance CPU, the ability for our NPU for AI processing to run at a very low power but very large models. And there's always a balancing act there between the processing capability, the compute capability, and the actual memory footprint. There's always a balancing act. Sometimes you tend to be more memory bound than compute bound. But bottom line is, we feel like we've kind of reignited. Like today, when we think of laptops now, it's in a different way. It's not what it was even 5 years back. A lot of things have changed quite dramatically in that space. So we're in the business of providing all those computing solutions that go inside, not to mention the software stack that comes with it, to make it easy for developers to build use cases and applications on top. That's a software stack, making it more convenient and more easy, and of course working closely with the Windows team.
So I'm just thinking about this. Think about all the companies that we work with today or use their applications today, companies like Uber or Instagram, Snapchat. These are multi-$100 billion, trillion-dollar companies. AI is really going to change the need for these companies. You're going to see apps starting to go away. You're going to probably see the app economy be thrown in the air at some point. And there's trillions of dollars at stake here because of AI. I'm curious what you think, how these companies are going to need to evolve.
I think AI has emerged, whether whatever you believe in it or not. I'm a big believer in AI, but it is here to stay, and it is certainly very disruptive in lots of things. The last time we saw something like this was probably at the birth of the smartphone, and before that, the birth of the wireline internet in the early 90s. It's one of those moments. So clearly there's lots of opportunities coming in. When it comes to the apps, as you mentioned, we didn't speak a whole lot about agents, but there is a trend towards applications. At the end of the day, they all live in their own individual silos. Like if I open one app and then I open a different app, they don't actually, strictly speaking, communicate with each other. And that is not how we as humans think. Sometimes we might want to do like some multitasking with 3 or 4 things put together. I want to buy something, but at the same time, I'm just checking whether I have enough in the bank balance, and then meanwhile go from there to a travel app. The idea of an agentic workflow is something that sits above apps, perhaps being the front end of the app, so that when we talked about AI as the new UI, your first interface is actually to an agent and not to the application. And what that means is that it's a pretty complex task that you explain in a very natural language, and it's the agent's job to figure out what to do from there onwards. Pick from a rich bouquet of AI models to figure out which one is more relevant for that task at that point in time, interface with some sort of a personal knowledge graph that's residing either in the device or somewhere else, but tap into it to get a sense of your preferences, and then use that information to see, okay, which apps do I need to process all of this and get back with that with that information. And so agents, the way we see it, are increasingly becoming more prominent and as the front end towards the users. What does it mean for apps? The apps still exist, And there might be a period of time of coexistence between the both, but increasingly there's a lot of interest in building agents which can actually, and by the way, there's not just one agent, you might have several agents. In your device, you might have like an enterprise agent, a medical agent, and things of that sort. And you can take it to one more extreme. Next time you open up, I'm just making this up, but next time you open up a specific spreadsheet and so on, you might actually open up a financial agent which then goes through all the financial things, but that's where the specialization is. So there's lots of opportunity over there. What it means for apps, I think it's to be seen. I don't have a good, clear answer on that. It's always hard to predict the future, in our industry at least. And but what's clear is that agents are clearly taking over as a level above the apps at this point in time.
But here's the big problem. We have the underlying hardware technologies from companies like Qualcomm that are building these things. We have the underlying AI technologies from companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, building these technologies and the ability to build these agents. But then we have this duopoly of operating systems that are conduit to these devices across the world. You have Android and iOS. But neither Android or iOS, Android to more extent, are implementing this new user interface that feels inevitable. So how do we get there if these companies want to sort of control that moat and keep the app ecosystem alive when it's pretty clear this underlying technology is popping through from below?
I mean, just to be very clear, you forgot to mention Windows, by the way. But
Windows, yeah. Who uses that? Right?
As Qualcomm, Microsoft and Google, very close partners of ours. So we actually work closely with them in terms of going through. Yes, it is true that if you were to actually unpack that a little bit further, these days when we think of AI and if you think of models, AI models are actually coming in from all over the place. And not necessarily just from, you picked some names like OpenAI's obviously GPT-5, and most recently they even announced the GPT OS's 20 and 120 billion parameter models in open source out there. It's a new trend. But then, and then we have Anthropic, we have a few other model creators. But it's also important to understand that model creators exist all over the world. We actually work very closely with the model creators very recently, and you'll see us talking a little bit more about that, but both in the Middle East, in Japan, in India, and most certainly in China, there's a lot of other model creators who are in that language, but they also have a different way of actually looking at things. So model creators are coming up independently of everyone who has the existing OSs. And then there are certain devices where actually it's none of these OSs. In fact, Linux, open source Linux is actually used quite a bit. So it's very interesting times to see how this is going to evolve. Our take is that at the end of the day, all of our partners are very eager to bring in rich user experiences based upon what they have. And we are in an ecosystem where if you start seeing far more compelling use cases coming in from elsewhere, everyone tries to catch up over there. So personally, I'm not too worried about that one. Really looking forward to seeing all these use cases that I talked about come in.
So if you think about going back to hardware, going back to the devices, right? Like my arms are getting kind of filled up, my pockets are filled up. I mean, something's got to give, right? People don't want to charge 7, 8, 9 things every night. Maybe you don't have enough outlets or desire to do that. What's going to win out?
That's a tough one. The one thing that we definitely want to do is make sure that they all coexist and work in conjunction with each other. And does it mean that you have like a single vertical ecosystem? Not necessarily. There are protocols that are emerging right now in which devices can communicate with each other in the right way. You are right about one thing that we talked in the beginning, which is there's a lot of things that we wear with us, and those things are kind of taken. Now, maybe there is still some room for a pendant tomorrow. I don't know.
Did you see this thing called the Friend? Has anyone seen that? It's a necklace, and it's like an AI that you just wear on a necklace. It's kind of ridiculous.
We've seen one instance of this like a couple of years back, but I like the fact that there's a lot of experimentation going in that space. I mean, we wouldn't be here with that sort of a device with the AR glasses unless we keep experimenting. But those devices will continue to happen. Now, in terms of what else you can carry with us, well, of course, we have a smartphone, but it remains to be seen what's the appetite for us to carry even more devices in addition to a phone, a laptop, and maybe another puck or something like that. But yeah, there is probably a threshold over there. But we think of it as the universe of devices that we have chosen for ourselves. And just from us, we want to be the ones powering all of those platforms.